Leaving a comfortable corporate job can often feel like standing at the edge of a cliff. You're there with your parachute and you can feel the fresh breeze. Adventure is calling you. You want something more for your life. There'll be people around you that are saying, yes, do it. You've been waiting for this moment. We believe in you. And others will be saying, are you mad? Have you lost your mind? You've worked so hard to build what you've built for yourself. Today, I'll be chatting to Tshidi Ramogase, who is a seasoned corporate affairs and sustainability executive who took that proverbial leap and decided that I'm going to leave these big brands, these big corporate titles that I've had over the years and do something that's more meaningful for myself. And that really takes courage to do that, to hang up your corporate shoes, so to say, and go out there and define life on your terms. Welcome, Tshidi.
Wow, thank you, Maya.
Dramatic.
Dramatic, but also real, right? Because all those emotions,
Yeah.
I felt them. As you were talking, I felt them then, and
Yeah.
I literally felt them now.
Wow.
You know, that excitement, but fear at the same time. So, yeah, but I'm excited.
And with that excitement and fear, for me, it really speaks to the importance of embracing change, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're doing something you've never done before, it is absolutely terrifying. And it's so easy to just want to pull back and do things the way you've always done them before. So where would you say your courage came from to do it?
I'd be lying if I'd say that I always felt so courageous, right? In fact, I still don't think I was that courageous. It was more of, there's a saying that says change happens when fear of the unknown, is better than the comfort of where you are, so to speak. And I think I got to that point. I think what's interesting about this leap of faith, as you call it, is that I've always known, and if you ask me how did I know, I'd probably say maybe spiritually, but I've always known that I'm not going to end up in corporate. I'm not going to have the perfect farewell retirement party at 63, especially with this last assignment, right? My previous boss, and I'm going to try and make this story short, but when I joined my previous company, it was the biggest career move. It was my first directorship role in a field that I just transitioned into out of HR into corporate affairs, in a big brand business, and fear was there, but excitement of what I could create was what inspired me to take the leap, right? But then I remember for the first 3 years, I refused to have career discussions. Everybody who cared to listen knew that I'm leaving in 5 years. So I mentioned this from day one. It's weird to start a company with a company that you love in the job and you say, but I'm not going to be here after 5 years. And I used to say those words. And so that's why I say I've always known. And then, of course, it gets beautiful. You get promoted. You do amazing things. You change lives. And it is still so close to what you believe to be your passion and your purpose. And you do it. And before you know it, it's 10 years.
So you spent 10 years, not the 5.
I spent 10 years in the
okay.
first role, right?
Yeah.
So 5 years came, oops, I'm still there. And actually after 5 years, my previous boss would call me every 1st of February, because that's when I started, say, happy 6th-year anniversary, Tshidi. I'm sure you're still having fun. And then he would do that. I mean, he used to do that every year, just to remind me that it's good here. You were going to leave, but it's good here. So when 10 years came, I thought, okay, we are done. Now we are going. But a great expansion project came, and I could not be part of the fun, So I stuck around for additional 4 years after the major condition. But then that feeling never goes away. I think that was the challenge. That feeling never goes away. And so where the courage or the push, maybe actually, it's more like a push in my case,
Yeah.
came from was one fine morning, finishing exercising, just walking around the neighborhood. I asked God a question that, I realize what they say when they say, don't ask God, for answers you're not ready for. And I remember clearly saying, I'm having so much fun here. I'm doing such amazing things here. Just gotten this amazing promotion. Are you sure I have to leave? I know you and I were like 5 years. Are you sure I need to go? And I said, don't come with silly signs, ne? It better be like a big, bold sign. I don't want to second guess.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he would answer, right? With a push.
Wow.
And that's why I'm saying that I don't think it was courage more than a yes, you have to go.
Yeah.
And I guess the push was a painful time for me. Out of nowhere, I was dealing with something that has never happened in my career before. I was investigated for things that didn't make sense. And I said to God, okay, I didn't ask you to get me fired. I asked you for a sign. What's wrong with
Yeah.
you? Did you miss it?
Yeah.
But thankfully, there are people around you at any given point. My boss at the time believed in me, supported me. It was painful. We went through the process, and 4 months later, it was all found not to be true. And I said to God, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Just give me 2 more years. And 2 more years. When I turned 50, which was last year, I resigned because I then made that promise to God that I swear to God, 50 years I will not be here. So it was more push than a courage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was a leap of faith. It was truly a leap of faith.
And what's coming up for me, Tshidi, is your close relationship with God.
Yeah.
And how that was instrumental in you deciding. And it's got me thinking how many people go through that process of praying, of asking, and hearing nothing. So I'm wondering, what is it about your relationship with God that you feel could be useful to other people in terms of getting that clarity or that openness to how these things can come at you in different ways,
Yeah. So my journey with God, and we joke about this in my family,
Yeah.
and I'm going to use a Sesotho phrase because that's what we normally say, but we say, Rona modimo re mo nyantse letsweleng. So we were breastfed, God, right? Because I do come from 3-4 generations of priests and pastors.
Wow.
My great-grandfather founded the church in 1939, right? Yeah, of course, we fight it. My early years, I was at church because my mother said, as long as you're under my roof, you go to church. It's not that I wanted to go. And it wasn't the 6 years thing. I laugh all the time because I come from apostolic background.
Yeah.
And imagine being 16 wearing green and white.
Yeah.
And then it really isn't the most attractive thing for a teenager.
Yeah.
But that's where it came from. So having seen it from my mother, my grandfather, because I never got to meet my great-great-grandparents, but from my grandfather, then my mother's side, and my mother loved God. Like, it was almost as if it's common sense for her.
Yeah.
Right? And I tell people, for the longest time, I loved, after my dad died, I just started sleeping with my mother.
Yeah.
Right? And it didn't matter. 3 a.m., come rain or shine, my mother is praying. And then when she wakes up, she literally turns onto the floor on her knees and she prays, right? So at first it's a ritual, but then it becomes a way. And so as you grow older and you don't have to make that decision, you've moved out of your mother's house, life is bashing you, life dread to center. You realize on your own you can't do this, and you dig deep. And for me, when I was digging deep, I went back to my, roots. God is the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
I can have plans. And I'm very much a plans person, structure, because I can be a bit of
Yeah.
a scatterbrain. I need a plan. But I got to a point where if I look back and I
Yeah.
look at what I've been able to achieve, I'd have to be extremely arrogant to think it was just me in all my power and my all being. Because some of the things, yes, I showed up, I worked hard like so many people, but
Yeah.
truly, truly, do you believe that you breathing today has to do with all of you and your smartness, you waking up, you lending these opportunities, you having these people that surround you, that support you, you overcoming things that you never thought possible. You have to hit that rock bottom in life where you know that on your own you never would have come through.
Yeah.
So for people that are trying to hear God or they think they're not hearing God, I want to say you hear God. You're just not ready to listen. I wasn't ready to listen until I was pushed. I knew it
Yeah.
here. Some call it gut feel. I call it a God whisper. It's here. It's that inner voice that often you hear when you're quiet.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I hear it the most when I'm at crossroads, when I have to make difficult decisions, when I've gotten myself in trouble and I don't know how to get
Yeah.
myself out of it. Like, God, please, I promise, take me out of this.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the prayers are yes, sometimes the prayers are no, and sometimes the prayers are not yet. I think my first real experience of a no was when I fasted and I prayed for God to keep my mother alive. And it didn't happen. And it was like, but what did you expect? Your mother was 73, you've lived a good life with her. It's painful, but it's God's will. But I petitioned God like I've never petitioned him before to, please not now. Can I at least have until she was 75? And God said, well, now what's the time? So just get close to God and get over your arrogant self. There is no way, I do not believe personally, that you do this on
You
your
can
own.
just stand on your own and you've got it all figured out. And it's actually so aligned with what my previous guest was talking about, Debbie Tam. She's a coach. She was saying that you cannot do life without having that quiet time,
Yeah.
that reflective time, because our world has conditioned us to be in go, go, go mode. And it's harder than ever now to just sit with yourself and be quiet and to observe your thoughts and to be able to hear the voice of God, as you put it. Yeah. So very interesting that it's aligned. And you said something that really piqued my interest when you spoke about how your upbringing in the church has almost like groomed you to the woman that you are today.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we tend to think that we are so autonomous, we are so independent, we get to choose.
Yeah.
And to a greater extent we do, right? But we can't limit the value that our upbringing has had on us. So I'm wondering, with this journey that you're on now of leaving, how has other aspects of your childhood and your upbringing influenced this mighty woman that said, you know what, I'm moving on to the next thing now?
Yeah. I laugh when you ask that question because I've always, for some reason, at least, before my other young cousins, been the youngest with the eldest cousins, right? Both from my paternal and maternal grandparents. And I've always been most vocal. So I was raised by my dad because my mom was working at the time, and my dad was sort of starting his own business. He was a taxi driver, and he was starting to transition from being a taxi driver to being a taxi owner. And so I was always with my father, always with my father. My early childhood was with my father, and he encouraged me to have my voice, to speak up. And he would actually laugh and marvel looking at me with my cousins being the youngest, the shortest, but
I
being
wanted
the
to
loudest.
say, were you the shortest?
Always. I've never, that's why, high heels, I'm trying to buy high tier.
Because I know as kids, that counts for everything.
No, I was here, but
How
I was
tall
here, right? Big mouth, small feet type thing. So I was that person. And he encouraged it. And be like, this one is going to be a lawyer. And so the confidence that my father instilled in me and allowed me, and my siblings, my elder siblings, they always say, when you arrived, Papa was already mild. He was very strict, and even my mother. But I was number 4, so the elders dealt with the strict energy. You know? And that was so influential. I mean, how I started school at 5, and purely because somebody called my dad one day and said, you need to come through. We have an opportunity. Come now. And he dropped me at a school with the teachers, and he said, I have to go somewhere there. She's starting school today. And he left. So I was 5 and I was school. So my dad encouraged that. And not just for me, even for my older sisters and, my late brother and my younger brother. Well, my younger brother didn't get to meet him because he died when he was about 6 months. But if I think of the role my father played, it was like, you can be anything, right? As old school as he was, my older sister got the driver's license before my brother because she was the firstborn. So my dad didn't do that thing that the boy first, And I mean, my sister was born in 1962. So he was way ahead of his time in a way, to encourage us to really live to our best potential. My cousins, they do the same thing. Till today, they still call. I'm kind of the person that you can depend on, you can call on, the problem solver, the fixer, the fun maker. So I think that came to a point where if your family sees that in you, you are there for the family. And I'd like to believe I'm there for my friends and my own family that I'm married into now. You are supported. You've got a village that trusts you. So why wouldn't you trust yourself? And that's the hardest part, is to trust yourself.
That's so powerful, trusting yourself. And a key part of becoming an entrepreneur is trusting yourself. And in that, there's the piece on building your own brand outside of the big global brand names. I remember when I left MultiChoice, one of the hardest things was carving out, who am I? Outside of enriching lives, DSTV, so much more. Boom, 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 And you walk into a space and they're from MultiChoice, they're from DSTV. Now it's Mayo who walks in. And carving that out, it was painful. It was a lot of self-doubt. It was fear. But eventually, now I can walk into a room and say, this is Mayo Febi. This is what I stand for. So I know it's early days for you, but I'm just curious, where are you in that journey of carving out who you are as an individual?
When you make such a decision, so that's why I asked God for 2 years before I can make the decision, because I needed to be comfortable with the decision, because otherwise I'd be so scared and I wouldn't act, right? So the 2 years I spent preparing. Preparing in a sense of conversations with my husband. What's going to happen when I stop working? We've always been a working couple, supporting each other's careers. Okay, what does this look like for you going forward? Preparing myself. And that 2 years helped, but also it created trouble, because you also consult, right? So I consulted a couple of people. I know there's one executive search person that actually said to me, you're great, you're doing great, amazing things, you're an amazing exec, your CV is amazing. I can place you anywhere, anytime, but you are only as valuable as the big brand you work for. And that just made it harder, right? But because the push was so hard, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a leap of faith now. And I don't know if you remember this, but you then did the same. We met and we're having conversation, and literally as you were leaving, you said to me, because I think that session when we're having these conversations, I was telling you about the fear. And in your closing, as you're leaving, we're having a drink, you said, Tshidi, the thing is, you think that the organizations made you, but that thing, that Tshidi thing, it's in you. Yes, it gets
Yeah.
enhanced or dropped in different environment, but it's in you. So take that, right?
Yeah.
So that helped me, and it stayed with me. And when I'm not trusting myself, I'm like, but I am Tshidi.
Yeah.
I am the one that said it's good at 5. I am the one that my father trusted. I am the one that my family trusts. So I'm still at a point, and I said this to somebody 2 days ago, that what's been interesting with this journey for me is not having a plan other than I'm trusting the calling, right? I literally have no plan B. The only plan I have is to do this and do it well and make a difference in people's lives and not be the only one that on my last, day on this precious blue marble that says I lived to my full potential, but have as many people as possible able to say that. So that's that. And so where I'm at is I'm doing things I never thought I'll do, right?
Yeah.
So if I was fearful, for me, it was do everything first to deal with the fear and then do it. Now, I'm like, you're fearful, follow the fear, right? I wouldn't say yes to most things because am I good enough?
Yeah.
And my previous boss said to me, I'm challenging you to just say yes. Just say yes. What's going to happen? Just say yes, right? So I'm saying yes.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes, and I'm leaning into the fear and the uncomfortable spaces because it's an evolving plan, and I'm not going to know, where is it going to be anchored. But what's guiding all of that is it resonating with that voice, with that passion, with that spirit? And will it deliver what I want it to deliver or what I believe it should deliver? So I'm in a space where I'm enjoying the discovery. I'm in a space where I am seeing where the journey is going with impacting people's lives positively. I'm in a space where I'm working with small to medium enterprises and unlocking their potential. And by the way, when I left, I didn't think that's what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be unlocking potential more with your development space, with NGOs. Yet I'm having people coming to me, approaching me, saying, we are doing this, would you come and help us? I haven't actively looked for anything. And that's a blessing. I've had people coming say, come and help us, right? So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying being helpful, being supportive, helping other people reach their dreams. And I'm fortunate. I have to say this. I am fortunate in the sense that there was a plan
Yeah.
that helps me not have to worry about the financial situation for now. I have a very supportive husband. I think I was prudent
Yeah.
in also making sure that there's enough money. Even I didn't even know where I'm gonna end up. So there isn't a huge driver right now that makes me be nervous about still leaning into the fear, because sometimes okay, now we gotta pay the bill, so hey, stop you with this fluffy passion thing and go get the money. So I'm still in a position where I can say, no, not yet. I don't want to go back to corporate. That's an amazing job, but it sounds like more of the same. I've done that. No, I don't want to be considered for it. Can I recommend a name for you? So it's still flowing and it's still exciting.
And that was the word you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, it sounds like you're in flow
Yeah.
in that you're not actively seeking work and things are coming to you.
Yeah.
And what comes up for me is the intentionality of being centered within yourself, because sometimes we get so caught up running after a thing, but what we actually need to do is to be magnetic so that we attract it to us. And you mentioned you had no plan B. You told yourself, I have to make this work somehow. And I often find that for many people, that's the missing ingredient in that they give themselves options, to say, if this doesn't work in 3 months, then I'm going to stop. Or if this thing feels too scary, then I'll always have the opportunity to jump back.
Yeah.
So you closing the door, burning the key, burying the key or whatever, and saying, I'm not going back in there. Where does that come from, you think?
I think it comes from, and I was mentioning this to somebody, I have this view,
Yeah.
if God decides to keep me until I'm 70,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting down and I'm not actively working, and I'm reflecting on my life, and I'm saying, wow, I have a good life. I really had a good life. I've lived to my best possible potential. And what is in that picture is not me playing it safe anymore. I have played it safe. You know, I'm not saying people must be reckless and jump around. There was a time where it was all about building career, it was all about building relationships and all of that. I'm in a phase now where it is about contributing, impacting lives, and just using everything that I have learned to make a difference, right? So I have thoughts around how we can do things differently around empowering young people. We can do things differently around empowering women. We can do things differently around empowering society. And so the option to go back is going to take that away. And I think I'll regret that.
Yeah.
I will regret quitting too soon. I will regret not seeing it through. I will regret not using all this that I have to build so many other lives. An interesting thing is when I was talking to people, and especially my bosses, around why I want to leave, because I had such a huge chunk of sustainability. I mean, it was probably 60% of my job. The question would always come back, and they'll say, but you're doing it already. You're changing lives. You know, I mean, you have a 80 million rand, 100 million rand budget in sustainability, and you're changing lives. Whereas now you're on continental level, you're changing lives beyond South Africa. So what exactly are you after? And it was hard to answer that at first. And then eventually I answered it to myself. And I think that's why I delayed my move, right? Because but you're doing it.
Yeah.
While you're getting the big
In
paycheck.
a very comfortable way.
Why
You're doing it.
Why do you want to go back for funding? And the answer was finally that it is why I'm doing it that's important now, right? I'm not doing it because it's a corporate sustainability strategy that we now have to adhere to and deliver.
Yeah.
I am doing it because I am called to do it. And I am going to respond to that call. And I respond to one person and one person only is the one who's called me out to do this job, right? And yes, you have to report to your funders and whatever. I'm aware of that. But when I'm sitting by myself and I look back, there was one question, the one thing that I'm focusing on, that I'm actively seeking in this space is this what you wanted me to do? Is this it, God? Am I on the right track? And so even with looking at opportunities, like, is this it? Is it on the right track? You know? And sometimes there's no answer. We're like, okay, we're going to figure it out anyway. It will land somewhere. You know?
And what's coming up for me is the interconnectedness of experience, our experiences rather, because we can easily fall into the trap of thinking, I've wasted the past 10 years of my life, or I hate corporate. What was I doing? Now I'm so happy. I'm so fulfilled out here in the world. But actually, everything works together. It's like there's a golden thread that runs through that. I'm sure you would agree with me on that.
I agree with that. I loved my corporate life. I don't even want to lie.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the people I worked with.
Yeah.
I loved and still love the brand. I loved the role.
Are we allowed to say the brand?
Yeah, we are. And it's actually quite stupid not to say it because it's all over social media. I mean, I was with Coca-Cola, system. So I was on the bottler side, and the last role was with Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, right? I mean, those that know me as clothed in Coca-Cola, clothing everywhere. Funny thing, last week I was talking to somebody, it's like, send me a picture of Coca-Cola truck, this kid is like, oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Please, do you guys need to buy this? What a brilliant thing. Like, you do know that I've left Coca-Cola, right? It's been 12 months. And she's like, no ways, you left Coca-Cola. But that was I was happy. Honestly, I did not leave because I wasn't happy. I left because it was time to go and I was going elsewhere. I think for me, when you talk about interconnectedness of experiences, when I said I'm here for 5 years, the other phrase I used to use like, this job is a bridge to get me where I am finally called to be.
Yeah.
I was saying it then, I was 36, I was young, and I was, it's just now, I'm thinking, oh my God, I actually have been talking about this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And when I was having doubts, should I go, should I stay? And there's conversation, no, would you reconsider staying? There's new leadership. And I said, no, I'm not. I didn't leave because of the leadership here. I loved working with my boss. I was leaving because I want to do this thing. But it's like, okay, 1 more year. We'll think about this. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And I went to my husband. I was like, hey, babes, there's this opportunity. I can help the business maybe for 6 more months.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, when we made plans that you're living 2 years, this extra whatever income, whatever you think it is, was not part of the plan. But seeing you deteriorate and not loving what you used to love so much is what I can't live with. So I have no idea why, but it's your decision, and he really knows me. So when I heard him say that, I was like, it was almost like one last confirmation. If he had said to me, 6 more months, babes, that means one more trip. Hey, let's do
one
it.
more bonus.
What is 6 more months anyway? Just do it, And he looked at me like I'm an alien, like, are you crazy? You are here, do it, And there is nothing in that journey that I regret.
Yeah.
Some of it painful, like I said, I don't know if you've ever been under corporate investigation. It's the worst experience ever.
I can imagine.
Anxiety, you don't know, you're figuring out, did you miss something? Were you supposed to think something through that you didn't? Or did you get too comfortable? But the growth out of that process, I'm thankful for it now that I'm not crying myself to sleep anymore.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it because I wouldn't have left otherwise, right? If I didn't get the push. So sometimes they say that which is meant to destroy you is actually that which builds you.
Absolutely. And you mention your husband a lot in this journey. And looking at your relationship, has it always been this supportive? Is it something you cultivated, you were intentional about as a couple? Because that's really been a powerful thing in the background that's been driving Tshidi.
So I want to say we've always been friends. We've always enjoyed each other's company. We met when we were very young, so we grew up together. And so when you grow up, so we've always fought as well, right? Because now I'm wanting to be super independent, maybe person, and he's also not quite wanting to be told what to do because, but if he was here, I think he would say, yes, he was telling my son the other day, he says, you've actually contributed so much to my growth. Between you and my mother, you really are the people that made me. So from his side, yes. But I want to say from my side, it has always been this way. And I say this because my husband was raised by a single woman, very strong single woman. The father died when they were very young and my mother-in-law had to step up and she stepped up big time. So my husband was never threatened by a woman that stands up, that shows up, that works hard and provides. And he loved that about me. He keeps saying, I love the fact that you can say, babes, I just spent so much and I bought this for myself, but I want to spoil it, I spoil you, but this is it. So I think the one single biggest thing that he's never been threatened by my success. And he pushed it, he supported it, right? The biggest learning for me was to communicate the support I needed.
Yes.
Because I got into the relationship with, my mother said a good wife does this, a good wife does that. And there'll be moments I come back and I'm wearing high heels and I'm trying to cook at the same time because I must be a good career woman, a good wife. And he'll sit there and look at me. And one example is one day I said, babes, can we have a conversation? I don't think I can cook and do, career. And he said, but who said you must cook every day? We'll eat McDonald's if we have to. Sit down, let's talk. I'd rather sit down and talk with you, and we catch up on the day. And I was lucky that I also have a very low maintenance child. My son is so easy to raise. Like, honestly, he's one of my blessings. You know, besides the fact that we had to do with learning disabilities and ADHD, he's a thriving young man, quite intelligent, very responsible. I don't know what I've done to deserve him.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
in fact, my husband says that it's like, whew, the things I've put my mother through. I don't know what I've done to deserve TK. I expected my son to give me a hell.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I've been blessed that way. Amazing friends,
Yeah.
amazing sisters and brother. Yeah, if I count my blessings, one of my greatest blessings is relationships. Yeah.
And would you say there've been any detractors, people who are like, Tshidi, you have lost your mind. What are you doing? You've built such an amazing corporate legacy. Uh-huh. And how do you deal with those?
You know, I said to them, I think that like you're not telling me something that I haven't thought through already. I have. But if I stay here, the fear of regretting not taking that step would haunt me for the rest of my life. You know, and it's just something I wasn't willing to gamble. I wanted to let me go out. Let's see. Like otherwise, it's gonna be I coulda, I shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it and come back. I got to a point where the fear had totally dissipated, but the push was still necessary, right? And talking to people like you, talking to people like Disable who have done it. My husband ran his business before, came back to corporate.
Yeah.
And so he had both sides and he supported it. My family cheering me on. There were more voices that were cheering me on than the one that was saying, don't do it, don't do it.
do
You know?
it.
And it's been an amazing journey actually because out of that, I have overcome fear. I want to say it's still there, but it doesn't stops me. You know, it doesn't stop me. So I took up cycling last year. I couldn't ride bicycle for the rest of my life. I was scared of falling.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, if I could jump off the corporate ladder, I'm sure I can try this. Join the group, I'm cycling. I've always wanted to learn to swim. I've been going but stopping. This is like, I've actually got to figure this swimming thing out. So I'm going for swimming lessons, you know. I've never been the person that take myself way too seriously. But this has actually made me laugh at myself even more. Like, just get over yourself. Fail.
Like, just
fail
try
some
something.
more. Yeah, get in the
know?
water and swallow some chlorine for 3 seconds, cough and get out. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, I'm enjoying finding out.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying finding out.
Yeah. And from my personal experience as well, I've also realized that the pull must be stronger than the push.
Absolutely.
So it's good to get a kick up the bums and say, hey, you need to get moving. But that's not sustainable. It's that thing out there that needs to be pulling you, that you're so drawn to it. Because in the bigger scheme of things, that's the fuel, if you think about it. That's the thing that gives you the drive to keep going. And going back to what you said, I said to you, thanks for for bringing that, because it's such an important piece of grounding ourselves in our own journey around understanding our skills, our strengths, our talents, what we bring into a room, and know that in as much as we brought it to a multi-choice or a Coca-Cola, we're taking that thing with us because it is us in essence. And the networks as well that we carry with us wherever we go. And I think that's also contributed to you not having to actively go hunting for work because people know you. You've developed relationships over the years. So now that you're at this point in your life, are there other new things that you're discovering about yourself, new strengths that you weren't aware of? What's coming up there?
So the big one is the one that I mentioned, overcoming fear, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had overcame my fear like long time ago because I would have done so many other things that I stopped. So that's a big one. I'm still kind of, riding with it, but definitely it's not as scary, right? more than anything, I think it's more around accepting the gifts and the capabilities that people had identified in me long time ago, and I kept saying, "Nah, not me. You're not serious. Me, no. What do you mean?" So one of those is one of my previous bosses had said to me, "You're such a natural speaker and moderator. You should lean into that and do that." And I'm
Okay.
like, what do you mean? I know. I speak because it's the job,
Yeah.
right? I don't wake up and say I want to be a speaker.
Yeah.
And he was the first one to say that, but everybody else kept saying that. You are such a natural in conversations. Why don't you do that? And I'm like, so much work. I must prepare. I mean, like right now, I'm thinking, you now had to prepare all of this work. SS, because
Yeah.
I see it as like, wow, so much work. But actually, in conversations is where I have gotten to know myself better and know other people better. And so I did a first gig, last week. 2 weeks ago, time flies, 2 weeks ago, where I was moderating an event and, facilitating conversations, and I felt at home.
Nice.
Because then it wasn't the job, must do it as corporate affairs director. It was like, you said yes, and you're here and you're doing it. And I felt at home. I felt comfortable. I felt relaxed. So yeah, it's affirming what other people have been saying about me all along and leaning into it.
And fear is such a big thing for all of us. And I appreciate that you said that you've gotten rid of it, the majority of it, but there is that little bit
Yeah.
every now and then, I'm assuming. So what is it that you're afraid of?
I'm afraid of failing myself and failing everybody who has supported me. And I'm afraid that I will fail not because I'm not able to,
Yeah.
but I will fail because I doubt myself. Right? Because it's funny because you're capable, you can do these things, you're able, you've done them before.
Yeah.
People have told you you're good at them, you can do this, you have a history, you have portfolio of evidence of I've done this, right?
Yeah.
But then you also carry this, wow, but what makes you special? Right? Maybe you could do it because you had the big budgets and you had a whole big team behind you that you could lead and do it. Could you do it now? And so when that happens, I stop myself and I'm saying, but it's in you. If it can't stop, it's in you,
Yeah.
And I've started surrounding myself with people that will close that gap where I'm feeling, okay, you can do this, but I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So I can problem solve. I always say, if you don't want it solved, don't give it to me. Just don't. Because,
What a good friend to have.
yeah, no, I can problem solve.
Yeah.
I promise you. But I also then I think I was probably never diagnosed. I am very hyperactive. So I can have it, I can see it, I can see the pieces together, and I can even see what it's going to look like at the end, right?
Yeah.
But then I need a lot of support to then push it through. I would be there until the end, no doubt. But this operationalizing in the details and whatever, I know exactly how it should be done. So then to deal with that, I have surrounded myself with the most incredible people that this is what they do and they do well, right? I recently actually put on my WhatsApp status that if you really want to see it done, get Sina. And, her name is Sina. I'm going to mention her. I hope she doesn't mind. She's probably going to kill me. But
Free advertising.
free advertising. But I promise you, she is the peace of mind. Because I know once it's conceptualized and the picture is clear, she's here.
She runs.
Yeah. Right? And she checks on me as well. Have you done this? You need to do this. When are we going to do this? Hey, I've got thoughts, So, yeah.
And that's such an important aspect, the idea of support, that you don't have to do it alone. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning around how dare can you stand up and say, I did this all by myself? It's through the support. And even now, on this part of your journey, it's about the people that are there for you in the areas that you feel you're not that strong in. Yeah. So looking at how you got here, we've chatted quite a bit around the support,
Yeah.
most recently, the planning that it took, the role that your husband played, you being very open with your employer about your plans. And you mentioned that it was 2-3 years in the making for you to finally make the leap. So it's quite complex and it has intricate details, right? But at a very high level, what do you think are the key questions a person should be asking themselves if they're watching you right now and they're thinking, but I want to do what CD has done?
Yeah.
Like, what are the key takeaways, do you think? I mean, the key questions, sorry, that they should be asking themselves?
I think the first one, which I struggled with, but is an important question, was are you sure in your current assignment you've
Yeah.
done everything that you possibly can? Because you also don't want to quit too early, right? So, yes, the 5 years was the number I had, but as the work was unfolding, I realized 5 years is not enough.
Yeah.
So then I stayed as long as I needed to stay. So don't quit too early. Because every assignment is a building block, as we've discussed. The other one is when I think of this thing, somebody was asking me this question yesterday. When I think of this next possibility, next assignment, what do I feel? And you feel a range of emotions from fear to excitement. And I'm a feeler, by the way. So some people are probably more mental people. So if you're a mental person, you are of the mind, then do your own plan, your 1+1, whichever way you resolve your problem. So I would start here. It felt right. There was no doubt, only fear because, how you leave such a big job with packages. So do I really feel like it's aligned? And what skills are coming that I can go leverage in my next, right? The third one is what support do I have or do I need? Without, I mean, I could have been stubborn. Other people say I'm stubborn and say I don't need to align with my husband. This is what I want to do. I'm going to jump. But without that, your initial support at home, even now, in fact, when I'm fearful, my husband reminds me why. Because I had a lot of conversations with him around it, right? My sisters and my friends, they remind me why. So I think it's important. Do you have the right support structure?
Yeah.
And whether it's financial, relationships, whatever, networks, do you have it? What are the gaps that you have that, today, I'll give, for example, I didn't realize I can't live without a PA.
I remember you said that to me
And I love
at the beginning. You're like, is this how you guys live?
I was blessed with incredible PAs, right? And I respected what they did. And I respect them even more now, right? So I've got that gap, which is why now Sina is such a big part of my life.
Nice.
She's an amazing project manager and she's giving me that sanity. The last one is, will you see this through? What's going to stop you from seeing this through?
Yeah.
I don't have a plan B as in going back to private sector the way that it was, because it will feel like more of the same unless, of course, I go for a different organization where impact is the core of what they do.
Yeah.
So I would go back to working for a corporate if it's your multinational, philanthropic organizations that their business is the business of making a difference, right? So if you see me wearing high heels again in boardrooms, it will be because of that mainly.
Yeah.
So what is it going to take for you to see this through? And this is important because when in doubt, you land on that. The final and most important one is this aligned to your mission on earth. My mother said something when I was young, and I didn't realize it. So I was coming back from school, varsity, and she picked me up at the park station. And we're loading our bags in the car with my friends.
Yeah.
And some other old man came to me and she was crying. She needed money for taxi. But you know, as a student, you keep enough money to just get you home. Né? So I had nothing left on me. And I said, I don't have it. But I couldn't let that woman go. And I got into the car. I said to my mother, Mama, do you have 50 rand? And she's like, why? And I explained. And at this point, she forgot that she taught me this. She raised me this way, I'm assuming, as well, besides the fact that I have it. And she says, "Hey, man, matsiri so what dinner when I got how ya jeso." And she gave me the money, and I got out of the car. I chose this woman. I gave this woman the money, and I came back. And my mother was like, "Well, I live social work, right?"
Yeah.
So that, for me, nobody knows you more than your mother. My mother, she's always known that I was this person that everybody's well-being, everybody, potential being realized is important. So when in doubt, go back to when you were young. What did your parents say to you about who you are? What did you believe about yourself? What role did you play with your family, with your friends, with your cousins? And I think that will give you the clarity. It will give you the clarity.
Yeah.
It's not always so clear. But for me, the family and God mission for me, I my favorite verse as I was leaving corporate was Ephesians 2 verse 10. And out of it, I took the simple words that whatever it is I'm going to do on this earth is predetermined by God. It's prepared already and is provisioned for. Right? So that centers me that I don't have to do it. It was predetermined. I was prepared for it. God has prepared it for me, and He will provide for it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it gives me a sense of peace. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
And I love that we started with God and now we're closing with God. So it speaks to how central God is in your life. How radical and transparent do you think we need to be with God, especially with life-changing decisions like this? Like, what kinds of conversations should we be having with God?
So I've got a routine of morning prayer because I'm a morning person, so I pray in the morning.
Yeah.
I've got a group of ladies I journey with. We pray together every Wednesday at 5:30.
Okay.
And we meet on Tuesdays. And then, of course, my family, my church family, I'm from church.
Yeah.
Growing up, God was fearful father figure. That you must just, God is watching, right?
He's going to whip you if you take a wrong step.
And then building my own personal relationship with God has told me that there is absolutely nothing I cannot share with God. Okay. Even my deepest, darkest secrets, my moments of weaknesses, my failures. In fact, a church friend of mine, we were talking about getting together, and you've been to my house. In my household, we love beverages. We serve beverages freely. And so with this event, we're going to have one of our pastors there, and I was having this total breakdown. Like, how am I going to explain all this alcohol in the house?
All the trials.
I was like, guys, how am I going to explain all this alcohol to pastor?
And you mentioned I've been there, so I can say this. It's an elaborate display of the world's finest alcohol when you walk in.
I'm having this moment, like an entire conversation, and the one friend, so the other people are like, hey, no, maybe we can remove this sign because
So
there's also
a
some signs. Yeah, there's also some signs that says nobody leaves out of here sober. And, Matapelo, this person who's so active in the church. I'm having this moment.
Yeah.
And this is me being truly vulnerable because probably the pastor's going to see this as well. Yay. And so this one friend says, I don't understand why we're removing it, but God knows, miss. And I suppose the point was, you worried about pastor? You your fear in the wrong place.
Yeah.
God knows. Even if you remove it, God knows. In fact, He even knows where you're going to put it.
That's so hilarious.
So,
God.
so that kind of brought me back to reality. That
Yeah.
really,
Like, what are you
what are you
doing?
doing? But if you're going to be
Yeah.
that vulnerable with God, be clear that He's going to be just as clear with you.
Yeah.
You know, like when I asked that
Powerful.
question and He answered in the most terrifying of ways. Yeah, and the one thing that I didn't tell you is it's going back to God.
Yeah.
And how do people know? Sometimes we look for God in big things, and He's also in the small details. He is in that moment when you're having coffee after gym, like this morning, and I was having coffee and I was sitting at the coffee shop and I was like, wow, I'm actually quite fortunate. When I leave here, I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to have a conversation with Mayu. And I don't even have to prepare for it because it's just about my life, you know?
Yeah.
And just having that moment of how blessed you are to wake up, to exercise, have coffee, and then come and share your life story, you know? And sometimes I see God in the smallest of details and I laugh. I laugh. I'd be driving and there'll be birds playing and I can't move because they are there playing. And I realize, like, yeah, actually, I can't just sort of drive through because I'm not the giver of life, so I can't take it away, you know? And I just stop and you enjoy that moment, you know? I love my garden. And I look at it, I look at the trees, I'm like, what a creator. What a creator. Yeah, I bought the flowers and I put them up there. But what a creator to create such beauty,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah.
It's really about those pauses, reflecting,
Yeah.
like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So we have a tradition on this podcast. The last question I'm going to ask you is, drum roll, what is your purpose, Tshidi?
My purpose is to unlock other people's potential and to make sure that at the end of the day they can lean into their potential for livelihood, but also to contribute to other people's lives. That for me is my purpose. I cannot imagine that God created all of us and put us here, and then for what really? So I believe every single person has got a purpose, and you've seen it. You've seen it in people that serve you at a restaurant with a smile. Like it is the only thing they want to do right now.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, my purpose is to impact lives. Impact lives.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here on Self-Centered. It's been
Thank
such an
you.
honor and a pleasure to have you. Really appreciate it.
I feel centered. Thank you.